G'day guys, Clarke here. Formerly NRL Rumours and Updates. If you're wondering what's going on with the whole name change process there, head over to my Facebook or my Instagram. I've got full videos explaining what happened with the NRL in regards to that. With that being said, let's get on with the ranking report. This is my second episode. The first one I did was fullbacks, and this is going to be halves. Initially, I wanted to do 5'8" and halfback for each club, but it sort of didn't work out because a lot of backup options were available to play 5'8" or halfback, which a lot of halves are these days. So to make it all a bit easier for everyone, I've just combined and I'm going to do 16 to 1, counting down which club has the worst to the best halves in 2019. Hope you guys enjoy. Number 16, guys, I've had to go with the Parramatta Eels. Not too much attacking flair was shown from these halves in 2018. Obviously, a lot of repeat sets were gained, but they failed to convert that to points. They have signed some nice new forwards such as Sean Lane and Junior Paulo, who will be sure to give them a lot more space, as well as Blake Ferguson out wide. And realistically, the upside to the Eels here is both of their halves are off contract and they've been told they're not going to be re-signed. So they are playing for their future. So yeah, I do have them at the bottom, but I wouldn't be surprised if either was to have a very good year. Number 15 now, and I've gone with the Canberra Raiders. Now, this isn't the strongest halves to begin with. I believe their starting pair will be Sam Williams at halfback with Aiden Caesar at 5'8". Not typically known for being exceptional halves, and you factor in they've also lost two massive bodies in Junior Paulo and Shannon Boyd in the middle. And whilst they have replaced them with some strong English talent, a lot of English players do come over, and it is known to be another step up in competition in the NRL compared to the Super League. So with that being said, I don't see the Raiders performing too exceptionally throughout 2019, and Arta Hingano, of course, would be in my opinion, the man to replace either Williams or Caesar if an injury was to occur. Okay, guys, number 14 now, and I've gone with the Brisbane Broncos. Now, I believe Bennett will probably persist with the Milford and Nikorima combination throughout the year, but as we saw in 2018, it's not what the Broncos need. They need a true directional half to steer them around the park, and in turn that allows Milford to play what's in front of him, as opposed to trying to create stuff that just isn't there. We saw it similar to Benji Marshall throughout stages of his career, especially when he went to the Dragons. They didn't have a strong directional half, and Benji seemed to struggle because he was just trying to do too many plays. I think it was pretty similar with Milford in 2018 there. Obviously, they have the option to put Jack Bird in as well at 5'8", and they have signed promising young half Sean O'Sullivan from the Sydney Roosters. So they do have options, and I would like to see the Broncos explore those options in 2019 because last year I think their halves was definitely the weakest part of a otherwise very strong squad. Number 13 now, and I've gone with the Canterbury Bulldogs. Now, the Bulldogs are a team that they've got a lot of options and depth there, but not particularly a strong pairing or a proven pairing within the NRL. So we look at their options. They've got Nua Brown, Jeremy Marshall-King, Jack Cogger, Kieran Foran, and Lachlan Lewis. Of those, the pairing that makes the most sense to me would be Kieran Foran at halfback with young Lachlan Lewis at 5'8". Lachlan Lewis, I think he has a lot of upside to his career. I think we're all very impressed with what we saw in 2018. But I have had to rank the Bulldogs a bit lower because, as I said, he's not proven in the NRL level with Kieran Foran as his halves partner. So, they probably deserve to be a little bit higher, but until we see that, I've had to rank them a little bit lower than they probably deserve. And as for Foran, there's a big question mark. Will he get back to his best form? We're not really certain. There was a stage there when the Bulldogs wanted to medically retire him, so if I'm being fair, there is a big question mark next to Kieran Foran's name, and he does have a lot to prove in 2019. So I've got the Bulldogs at 13. On to number 12, I've put my boys, the mighty Gold Coast Titans. I wish I could include us a bit higher, but I'll put us at number 12. So to discuss this, we've got a lot of great options through our halves. We've got AJ Brimson, Ashley Taylor, Riley Jacks, Tyrone Roberts. Factor in on top of that, we've also got players that are capable of playing 5'8" in Bryce Cartwright and Tyrone Peachey. They're all pretty established names within the NRL. My thoughts is AJ Brimson will remain at fullback. I have spoken to AJ and he said he doesn't mind either, whether it's fullback or the halves, but I think we saw his best football at fullback. From there, I would partner Riley Jacks with Ashley Taylor in the halves. Obviously, Taylor did struggle with his form towards the end of 2018, but we do know what he's capable of. He has trained with the Queensland Maroons before, so the Maroons team has a future player in that squad. And I think if Ash Taylor gets back to his best, he deserves a lot higher rank on this list, especially partnered with Riley Jacks, who is of course coming from the Melbourne Storm system, which we know to be so professional and to have produced so many great players over the years. Factor in, we've also got a lot more other options that are capable of playing in the halves. I think we probably deserve our ranking of 12, maybe a bit higher, but to remain impartial and keep bias out of my videos, I'm going to rank us at 12. On to number 11 now, and I've gone with the Melbourne Storm for this spot. Now, Cameron Munster is obviously a premier 5'8" of the game, and definitely deserves to be higher on the list. But it's the fact, throughout 2018, he did not have a consistent halfback partner. It was constantly chopped and changed on him. At the start of the year, it was Riley Jacks. It was Brodie Croft. Then it was Riley Jacks. Then it was Jerome Hughes. Then we came into the finals times and it was Brodie Croft again. So for Munster to have the exceptional year he did whilst not having a consistent partner next to him is quite amazing. But I've had to rank them probably a bit lower than they deserve to be. But we still don't know who is going to be the Melbourne Storm halfback next year. If it was up to me, I would go with Brodie Croft and Cameron Munster, and I'd persist with that combination because it appeared to work throughout the end of the season, heading into the finals, apart from the disastrous grand final game, of course. Another reason I've chosen this is because I believe Jerome Hughes will be the fullback next year. So looking at it, it does make it hard to rank them a lot higher because there's not a lot of depth there. So I think the Storm are pretty well justified sitting at 11 on this list. Number 10 is the Cronulla Sharks. So my halves combination here would be Chad Townsend at halfback with Matt Moylan at 5'8". Obviously, with the departure of Valentine Holmes, what I would do personally, I would move Josh Dugan back to fullback, and I would put Bronson Xerri to right centre for the Cronulla Sharks. Another option to that would be to put Moylan to fullback and bring Kyle Flanagan to the halves. So because that is also a very likely option given Kyle is the head coach's son, I've had to put them at 10 because if Moylan goes to fullback, that does affect their depth around the halves a little bit too much for my liking. However, at the time of me recording this, and I might sound like an idiot in a couple days, Shaun Johnson has reportedly just asked for a release from the New Zealand Warriors. If this is true, which other club can he go to in 2019 but the Sharks? No one else has close to $1 million spare in their salary cap but the Sharks because Holmes just left. I don't see which other club he could go to. So I'm going to put an early tip in this video that Johnson is at the Cronulla Sharks in 2019 if that is reported as correct. Number 9, I've gone with the West Tigers, another club that is blessed for depth, but not the strongest combination in the comp. Obviously, Luke Brooks is the reigning Dally M halfback of the year, so they probably do deserve to be a touch higher on this list. But looking at it, it's likely Benji Marshall's last year in the NRL. I think he'll still start at 5'8", alongside obviously Brooks. But I do believe, and this sucks to say, I do believe Benji will be on a downslope this year. He's not going to put up the same numbers that he used to obviously put up in the prime of his career. Other options is Tyson Gamble from reserve grade. He's pretty solid 5'8". I believe he debuted last year in the NRL. Didn't set the world on fire, but did his job. Josh Reynolds, of course, as well. Although I do believe they'll be using him off the bench because he can play that hooker role as well. And Robbie Farah is also in his final year. And then, of course, they have Ryan Madison, who they signed from the Sydney Roosters, who is he's also able to play 5'8". So they do have a lot of options. And look, I have to put them at 9. I'd like to put them a bit higher, but you'll see as the rest of this list goes on, and I'll explain as it does. Number 8, I've gone with the North Queensland Cowboys. Now, I do believe their halves pairing will be Michael Morgan and Jake Clifford. I'm not sure which one will play half and which one will play 5'8". However, I do believe Morgan will be steering and directing that team, so I don't think it matters really which position he plays. We've seen him play both very effectively. As for depth for the Cowboys, they've also got Tamari Martin, who is a former New Zealand international, and Ben Hampton, who is a consistent, versatile performer no matter what position you put him in. On the back of Morgan's form in 2017 when he took the Cowboys all the way to the grand final without JT. You'd have to think now JT's retired, he feels a sense of responsibility and he could produce something very similar to what we saw in 2017. As for Jake Clifford, well, let's bring it back to JT again. He has to be so much more better off for having those, even just those couple games he had with JT in the NRL last year. I'm sure he learned a lot, and I'm sure he'll learn a lot more of Michael Morgan. He's the Queensland under-20s halfback, so he does have a bright future in our sport. Number 7, the Manly Sea Eagles. We're talking about Daly Cherry Evans here at halfback, and he will most likely, I would say, be partnered with Kane LG at 5'8". We look at DCE, he's the current Australian halfback and the current Queensland Maroons halfback. So obviously, you know, he probably deserves to be a bit higher on this list, but Kane LG has gone through a couple rough years within the NRL at the Titans. Regardless of that, personally, I'm a huge fan of Kane LG, and I think he does have a huge future in the NRL. So I just believe his whole pairing with Ash Taylor just never really worked. And it happens sometimes, that's footy. I think given a fresh start where it's obviously, you know, it's pretty well known that the Sea Eagles is DCE's team. He's the captain, the goal kicker. He leads the team around the park every week. I think LG will have a much more reduced role where he's able to focus on doing that as effective as he can. And I think we'll really see some good footy out of Kane LG in 2019. Number 6, I've gone with the New Zealand Warriors. Now, I think this really speaks for itself. We saw how much the Warriors improved in 2018. We saw Blake Green take a very directional approach to his game with his kicking game and steer the team around the park. We saw a Warriors team that was a lot more consistent than we'd seen in previous years. And we saw Shaun Johnson able to sit back and play what was in front of him for the first time in a long time. I probably would have them ranked higher based on what we saw last year from the Warriors. They obviously like what they saw because they're looking to re-sign their head coach. If this halves combination can build on that, I've got no doubt the Warriors will be a finals team again. My only concern is there's a bit of a lack of depth there. I'm a big fan of Carl Lawton, big fan of Carlos, but he's predominantly more been a hooker since he's been in the NRL. He has played 5'8 before, and he's able to play 5'8 well. But if there was an injury to occur, would he really be the man to either partner with either SJ or Blake Green and take them all the way or take them to a final series? So for that reason, I've had to put the Warriors at number 6. Number 5, I'm sure the Knights fans are happy to see them this high up on a list. I've had to go with them. I've had to put them this high. From what we saw last year with Mitchell Pearce and Caleb Ponga both injured throughout the year, to feature so highly like they did in the Dally M, shows how influential they are to that team. Let's put in on top of that now that they're going to have a whole preseason where Knights coach Nathan Brown has admitted that's the focus of their preseason. They want to work as much as they can towards making Ponga and Pearce click. I think if they do click, wow. I mean, there's no doubt if these two click, the Knights will be a top 8 side, especially now they've got David Klemmer up the middle. They've got enough talent out wide. If these two click and the Knights do not make the top 8, please come to this video and slam me because I can't see a way they don't make it if these two are firing. Number 4, how about it? Glory to South Sydney. This is a halves combination that I believe are very successful because of the forward pack that's in front of them. We saw it last year. The Burgess boys just tore up the middle. And then from that, Angus Crichton and John Sutton were able to run some really nice outside lines. And that was off the back of Cody Walker and Adam Reynolds' halves pairing. Obviously, they've been together a couple of years now. They've been in a couple of NRL finals series together now. And also, we look at Adam Dewey as well. Very young, great player. I mean, when he was in the Lebanon side for the World Cup, New South Wales Blues coach Brad Fittler spoke very highly of him, and he's a big fan of his. So I think if Reynolds and Walker stay fit again and that forward pack performs similar to last year, we'll see a very dangerous Rabbitohs outfit led around by their halves, Cody Walker and Adam Reynolds. Number 3, the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Now I know in my ladder predicted video, I did rank them towards the bottom, which does make it strange. How can I have them at the bottom there but so high here? But when they were together last year, Widdop and Hunt that is, it was easily the best halves combination in the competition for a time. Obviously, they didn't sustain that throughout the full 25 rounds, and in particular, Ben Hunt. Widdop was obviously injured throughout the year, so obviously he can't help that. But if these two are focused, and if these two are injury-free for 2019, the Dragons are a big chance to make me eat my words on that ladder predicted video. Because they have the forward pack to give them a bit of room to work. They're both international representative players, and they both have the ability to either break the line, put through a nice kick, put through a great pass, try assist, try, repeat set, pick what you want, because Ben Hunt and Gareth Widdop can deliver in large for the Dragons in 2019. Okay guys, number 2, the Sydney Roosters. Now, if we're talking depth, you'll notice for some of my previous clips I have included it to some extent. And in other clips you'll notice I actually didn't really speak about their backup options or reserves. But if we're going to split the 1 and 2 here, we need to concern depth. And we need to look at the Sydney Roosters' main option throughout the State of Origin period, if Luke Keary is selected, would be Brock Lamb. Now, I'm really not a fan of Brock Lamb, if I'm being honest. From what I've seen in the NRL so far, he's not the best 5'8" we've ever seen, to be polite. But in saying that, what Luke Keary did in that grand final, just absolutely superb, literally amazing. And then Cooper Cronk, just his presence and influence he had on that game, they definitely deserve to be at number 2. Number 1, the Penrith Panthers. How can we not have them here? We have the New South Wales Blues halves combination of James Maloney and Nathan Cleary. Freddie Fittler has recently come out and said he's looking to emulate Queensland's pick and stick. So unless we see a very heavy form slump from either, very likely they'll be there again in 2019. What pushed them over the Roosters in the end, as I was saying, was depth. Look at the depth they have here. Tyrone May and Jerome Luai, both international players. Both realistically good enough to play first grade at this stage, but stuck behind, like I said, 2 New South Wales Blues representatives. So that's why I've edged the Penrith Panthers out and give them first place. Okay guys, that wraps up the ranking with Dane Clarke, episode 2, the halves, 16 to 1. Guys, let me know on Facebook, Instagram, or in the comments below any changes you'd make to my list, whether you agree, disagree, and yeah, I'll try to get back to you all as I usually do. One question I do have, if you've made it this far, and thank you if you have, I do appreciate that a lot, is would you prefer a sort of raw approach like I'm giving you now, where it's all coming off the top of my head, really? I mean, look, these are my notes. It's literally just the like 16 to 1, and then the players on the other side. And I'm giving you all this just as a raw, off the top of my head. Do you prefer that, or would you prefer if I did up a script and spoke off it? Personally, I much prefer just talking footy as it comes to my head, because it's something that comes so natural to me. And I feel like we see a bit too much of the scripted stuff on TV as it is already. But do let me know if you've made it this far. Like I said, I do appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for sticking around, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video.
This shit gets stoned. I take your eyes to see the moon. Take your body to the